Well, hello. It is a beautiful summer evening. People are out mowing, the sun is setting. I was just about to add a couple perennials to one of my favorite perennial beds, and I thought, you know what? Let's do a quick garden tour of it. Things are blooming. It's just like the right time, the right lighting, and I think you're gonna enjoy it. This is one of my favorite beds, and I put it in about 5 years ago. I had a low limestone wall put in that you can't even see at the moment because the perennials are just gushing forth and so beautiful. So I thought I'd kind of tell some of my process, some of my favorite things blooming, and how it kind of changes throughout the season, and that's the best part. So the beginning of it was a limestone wall made out of natural limestone, which is kind of like a locally quarried thing in Iowa, so it kind of feels like it could have been here for over 100 years. That was the anchor. And then when I do a perennial bed, it's always hard for me. So I need kind of some chaos within defined lines because perennials can be chaotic. So I have anchor plants. I have, big tailored junipers on the corner that are kind of like columns as they grow. And then I have boxwood repeating every so often, some green velvet boxwood, and they'll eventually get 3-4 foot. They're only about 3-4 years old right now. So right now what's blooming are lots of gladiator allium, and there's been all sorts of different allium along here, but they bloom at different times, which is wonderful. So the gladiators are blooming right now. They only get about 3 foot tall, but they get big heads. And then the peonies, and I have a mixture of different types of peonies. This is an herbaceous peony, which is the traditional garden peony and one that you're used to seeing, and it just kind of does what it wants. It's kind of floppy, but it's beautiful. So let's come around the corner, which this is a long bed, and this is my whole favorite side. It kind of L's, and it butts up to the new orchard here. Above it is kind of a formal lawn, but then right here is this beautiful kind of chaotic yet structured perennial bed. So we have lots of peonies, and they're still coming. Then we have like unique allium right here. This is a Schubertii allium. I love how it's like a starburst. It's really open and airy and huge. You can see right behind it here is a fernleaf peony that is done blooming. Phlox are gonna be coming up soon. Behind the bed, I have a whole bunch of different types of lily that will get tall. I think lily are kind of ugly just as foliage, but when they bloom, they're wonderful, so I have them behind everything. The Caradonna Salvia has been blooming. I like Caradonna because it stands upright, it kind of stays in a nice clump, and it just always looks good. One of my favorite perennials, one of my favorites, is the ornamental rhubarb. It's not for eating, but look at its leaf. It is so jagged and so sharp and so textural, architectural, and it kind of has this bronzy undertone. Isn't that beautiful? So it's a mixture of things, and what I do to kind of have it make sense is not only have boxwood every so often, but then I repeat the perennials all throughout the bed, so your eye kind of gets used to certain things and it makes sense. I have lots of Baptisia. I love Baptisia. There's yellow, there's purple. Then here is some geum that's blooming, that's red. This is a later one. Usually they're done by now, but that's what's fun, is having different things that bloom all the time. Let's go down a little bit and see a little bit more. So in the center of this long side is kind of an entry down into this area. And I always kind of like it because it feels like a secret down here, and that's what I love. So all along both sides of that entry are more of my favorites. There's more allium over here, more peonies, and then some lupin, which, you know what? Lupin, this is how I kind of assess what I need. Right now, as I'm looking at the bed, I see one lupin blooming. You know what that means? I need more lupin down here. So we're gonna be planting one of those, because that's, to me, the best time to know when you want something. Look at your bed, assess what you have, and if it feels like it needs something, see what's blooming. You know you need more, that's the time to plant it, because you won't remember later, I promise. So I have more of the Baptisia down here. This is indigo, which is kind of the more native traditional one. There's lots of the phlox are coming up so tall. There's lots of just beauty in here. There's some poppies. So you can see all throughout here, I have all those repeating things. So now I think it's time that I take in what was blooming and we plant a couple perennials to add to the space. So I bought this staircase lupin a few weeks ago. It's pretty much done blooming, but I bought it because I saw mine blooming. I saw this blooming in the nursery and thought, I need more of them. So what I'm trying to do is slowly create this symmetrical feel. I'm breaking up the roots slightly. I'm planting it in the hole just like I would any perennial. But what I'm doing as I'm assessing this is thinking, eventually I want to have repeating different types of lupin all up and down this wall so it makes sense. So when I think about it, when they're blooming, when I have a spot open, which I don't always have tons of spots, but I find it and I put it in. So it's always best when you're seeing things bloom to plant them, because then you're gonna remember what you're wanting. So also take into account, I know this normally gets about 2, maybe 3 foot tall. You have to look at the size of them and decide if it's kind of the front of the bed, the middle of the bed, or the back of the bed. All my lilies are always back of the bed because they're tall. I like ones that get 4 foot tall maybe. So the ones in front of the bed, like this smaller lupin, is gonna be about 2 to 3 foot. So it's perfect for here. So after I plant it, I'm gonna water it. In general, when I do a perennial bed like this, it's full sun. So I know everything needs full sun, but also I make sure that I do things that kind of, you know, have room, but also fill in. So I don't have to worry about too many weeds because you don't see them because it's so full. But also the fuller it is with plants, the less space you have for weeds to grow. So I have another peony to put in, then we'll wrap up. So there are 3 types of peonies, and I have them all in this bed. There are tree peonies, herbaceous peonies, which are traditional garden peonies, and then Itoh peonies. Itoh are a cross between a tree peony and an herbaceous peony. So these are more structured, they're a little bit more sturdy, they don't flop over. They also don't get as many diseases, as much susceptibility to powdery mildew, and the flowers are huge. So this is a yellow one, a Bartzella, which is one of my favorites because yellow peonies are so rare. So when you can plant them and when you can find them, you definitely add them to your garden. So I'm gonna admit, things like yellow peonies, they are what I would say is an investment perennial. You have some perennials that you can buy sometimes for under $10 that grow large, but then you have some like certain peonies, Itoh peonies being one of them, that are a little bit more spendy, but if you follow my stories, you have seen the yellow peonies. They are worth it because they are beautiful. So this is just like a quick snapshot of how I kind of approach my perennial beds. I like to start with some structure, some boxwood that give me year-round evergreen growth that are always gonna be there. I like to anchor it with evergreens, like these tailored juniper that kind of give that statuesque column feel. And then when in between all that, I do repeating perennials that I love. I do the same ones every so often, like these geranium, peonies, Baptisia. As you repeat them, it makes sense. It makes it feel cohesive and like it goes together. And for me, that's what works. It gives you this crazy, chaotic, yet defined and put together structured bed. And that's what I love. Okay, hope you enjoyed this quick, beautiful perennial garden tour on a perfect summer evening, early summer, late spring. Until next time, come back, go to my website, wiseguy.com for tips, for tricks, for food, for recipes, for whatever you need. I'm gonna still be on the farm, so I can't wait to see you here again because I'm always planting something.